Thank you so much to Farhan and Shireen and your team for inviting me. They've asked me to come and share with you my narrative and why I think it's imperative for us to be focusing on this issue. Like most observant Muslim families, my parents and my family were very connected to the mosque when I grew up. In fact, when my parents first immigrated to the United States, they first moved to Lansing, Michigan, and where I was born. And so I don't know if there are any Spartans out here. Spartans? Yeah. Well, I'm not really a Spartan because I grew up in Chicago. But I always feel like I'm coming home when I come to Michigan, so I'm very happy to be spending this weekend with you right now. The reason my family moved to Chicago was to work specifically within the Muslim community there. And when they moved there, they lived in an area that had a very large number of Arabic-speaking Muslims and a very vibrant Muslim community. Many of you know it as the quote-unquote Bridgeview area. This is a community that is very connected to the mosque. The center of the community is, in fact, the mosque. And I grew up there. I grew up attending Sunday schools there. I actually attended an all-girls Muslim high school that was in the mosque. And all of my youth activities, all of my friends were there. The people who we interacted with on a regular basis, my doctors, our real estate agents, et cetera, all attended this mosque. And I remember as a child in the 80s, women and girls prayed in the main sanctuary, which was awesome for me because I got to be under the dome and I ran around under that dome very quietly when my parents were praying. But I could see the mihrab, I could see the imam, and I was with the community as we prayed. As the community grew and as I grew older, the women were pushed back. First, from the main sanctuary into a smaller triangular room, and that was still in the prayer hall. Then from that triangular room out to the classrooms on the second floor. And then from the classrooms downstairs to the quote-unquote multi-purpose room downstairs with these rugs that they would bring in and hopefully would clean, although I don't know how frequent that was. And then those rugs became permanent, and that was the space where we prayed in the basement throughout the rest of my teenage and young adulthood life. And because I grew up so connected to the people in this community, in some ways, it didn't really matter so much to me where we actually were because I knew that we were still a part of the community. However, I came to realize as I grew older that the spaces women inhabit and girls inhabit in a mosque often are reflective of the relevance and the value added that they give to the community, that community leaders seem to believe that they offer. And I want to tell you a story that really shattered my understanding of this welcoming mosque community and why it actually is important to be in the sanctuary for women and girls. I do a lot of interfaith work, and I was invited several years ago to Pullman, Washington, which is on the borders of Idaho. It's a beautiful space, and there's a university there. And I was invited to speak to the Muslim community there on interfaith action. And the person who invited me was a tenured professor at the local university, and he was an uncle, an elderly gentleman who was one of the founders of the mosque some 30 years prior. And he said to me, Hind, we really want you to speak in the main sanctuary as some of the male speakers who we invite, we have them speak there. And I really, really want you to speak there because we're having a really toxic conversation in our community about women and the spaces that women occupy here. And I said, sure, no problem, that'd be great. I'm very happy to be around the mihrab anytime I can. And, but it was very, as I said, it was very contentious. And they came to a compromise, which is good, that I would speak in the multi-purpose room in the basement, where women typically pray, but also the brothers would come down. Some of the brothers didn't like that. They remained upstairs in the musalla, and I began my speech. I began to talk, I was born in Lansing, Michigan, and I'm a good Midwestern girl, and this is why I care about interfaith. But just a couple of minutes into my speech, some of the brothers from upstairs said, "We can hear her in the musalla, and that's haram, and please turn off the microphone." Yeah. And unfortunately, that led to a community fight. I had to sit back while this community stood up, and men and women started to argue with each other, until one woman stood up, and she was several years older than me, but she clearly was born and raised in that community of, I believe, South Asian background. And she said, "You know, I grew up attending this mosque, and I married a convert, and now we have a 2-year-old daughter, and wallahi, my daughter is more welcome at his parents' church than she is at this mosque." And to me, I thought, I don't know if people are blind to this. When you tell women and girls that there's no space for you here because of logistics or because of money or there are too many people in the community, as what happened in my Chicago community, you know, that is all well and true. But the reality is you're telling women and girls there's no space in this religion for you. For this reason and many others, I started a blog called Side Entrance, which you're all welcome to look at. And essentially what that is I ask women and girls, as well as our brothers, to share their photos and their stories of their spaces that they pray in mosques around the world. And I just want to end with this. I receive beautiful photographs. I receive photographs of spaces that are adequate. And I receive photographs of mosques that do not let women in at all. But what this community has done is it's developed an online community that motivates women, that it offers catharsis, that develops a space where men and women can come together and say, we want to support each other and create spaces that are welcoming to everybody in the community. A couple of days ago, I got a message from some of my friends in France, and you know there's that big grand mosque in Paris. It's beautiful. I'm sure some of you who've been to Paris have seen it. For decades, this is a mosque that has served the Muslim community and in fact sheltered North African Jews during World War II. And for decades, women prayed in the main sanctuary. But a few months ago, they had a new imam at this place, and they changed the spaces where women pray. Now women have to pray in the basement. And my friends from Paris contacted me and they said, you know, can you please share this with your community in Side Entrance? We want people to have, to keep us in their du'as, to join us as we try to change back the situation for women. And what I would just like to leave you with is, you know, I'm in the business of telling stories, of gathering stories and sharing stories. But what we really need is data. We need hard data. We need numbers. We need real number crunching to tell us what are the spaces that are friendly to women, how are they friendly to women, and how can we make recommendations to mosques and Muslim communities around the country and inshallah around the world to make the situation better for women and girls. And this is what ISPU is doing, and I'm so excited, so honored to be here tonight, and I really hope that we're able to all support the work that they do here tonight and in the years to come. Thank you.